Welcome, everyone. Lovely to see you. This is the first cafe-style service we have led since, I think it was the 1st of March 2020. I used to do them on the first Sunday of every month. And the idea used to be to try and encourage people to, there would be a less formal service and we'd encourage people to bring children and so on. That didn't really pan out. Well, sometimes it did. But in any case, I think that I've been asked by a few people when we're going to do them again. So it's just a different style of service. Had no idea how many people were coming. So, you can always rearrange yourselves if you want to. Basically, the service will start in a similar way to what you're familiar with. But I won't be doing an address. Later on, I'll ask you to do a very simple activity, which will just involve you talking to each other. I mean, I think you can manage that. And also, if you don't want to, you can sit out, not sit out, but you don't have to speak if you don't want to. There's always a pass option here. Now, people here in church are sitting around tables. I can't do that with you online, but I can put you into breakout groups. I'll probably put you into 2 groups when we get to the activity, but more about that later. Come in, welcome. So I'd like to just start by saying the theme of this service, we're still in the overall theme of friendship, which we've been looking at this month. And this service is a question, and we'll come back to this question, which is about our relationships here as a community. And the question is, how do we want to be together? How do we want to be together? So you don't need to answer that now, but there will be opportunities to answer it later. Together. Together, yes. So I'm going to start with just a few words by Eric Wikstrom. He's a Unitarian Universalist who's written some books that we sometimes use. And he writes, "We come together this morning because within us, there is something that knows we need more than we can find in our aloneness. We know instinctively, in the depths of ourselves, that we need others for this journey of life, even though we may also guard our independence and our individuality quite jealously. So let us celebrate all that makes us unique, and yet also all that makes us one. And let us dream dreams of all that we can do together." Those words are by Eric Wikstrom. So I'm going to begin, as always, by lighting our chalice candle and invite those of you at home to light one with me. And we do this as a symbol of our free religious faith. And we light this flame to remind us of the light that shines within each one of us, now and always. May we always nurture this light in ourselves and in each other. So we're going to sing, and our first song this morning is in the purple hymn books. If you want to use a hymn book, there are some at the back, but we'll also put the words on the screen. And it's number 126. Open the door, step right inside. Hymn number 126. Open the door, step right inside.
This place where love and hope will abide. Reach out your hand.
Well-timed Gavin opened the door and stepped right inside, just on cue there. Let's come into a time of prayer. And I'm going to share a prayer written by Elizabeth Tarbox. Spirit of life, we give thanks for the opportunities to love that present themselves in the turmoil of life. Where the light catches the tears in another's eyes, where hands are held and there are moments without words. Let us be present then and alive to the possibility of changing. Let us seek to make another's well-being the object of our concern. Let us seek to be present to another's pain, to bathe another's wounds, celebrate another's success, and allow the other's story to change our own. Let us stand in the morning on damp grass, hear the syllables of birdsong, and fill up on sweet air that rolls over oceans and continents. Let us look up at the stars and the planets that fill the night sky with majesty. Let us witness the first fresh buds of spring amid the brown sticks of winter. And for all this, let us be grateful. Let us not defend ourselves against the discomfort of unruly emotion, nor seek to close down our hearts for fear a new love will come to shake our foundations. Let us instead be open to discovering a new way of seeing an old problem, or appreciating the perfection of a seashell, or the possibility of friendship. For in giving ourselves to what we do not understand, we receive life's blessings. and in taking care of another, we are cared for. Amen. So I'm going to move to the lectern now just to share our story this morning. Viv, may I ask you to shut the door? Thank you very much. Oh, no problem. The story is called The Farmers and the Carpenter. And this story exists, as many stories do, in different forms, so you may have come across it somewhere in slightly different version perhaps. And it's about two brothers who lived on adjoining farms, who fell out with each other. They fell out in the first argument they'd had in 40 years of farming side by side, and it began with a small misunderstanding that grew into a major difference. Harsh words were spoken, and then silence. One morning, there was a knock on John, the older brother's, door. It was funny to have myself just there as well, whether you're looking there or here. He opened it to find a travelling carpenter on his doorstep who said, "I'm looking for a few days' work. Just a few small jobs here and there. Perhaps, could I help you?" And John scratched his head and then he had an idea. "Yes," he said. "There is something you can do for me. Look across the creek at that farm. That's my brother's farm. Last week, there was a meadow between us. But then he took his plough and he dug a creek in between us. So I'm going to go one better. You see that pile of wood over there by the barn? I want you to build me a fence, an 8-foot fence, so I won't have to see him anymore." "I see," said the carpenter. "I think I understand the situation, and I'm sure I can help you." John needed to go into town for some supplies, so off he went. And meanwhile, the carpenter worked hard all day, measuring, sawing, nailing. By around sunset, the carpenter had finished work, and John returned. His eyes opened wide and his jaw dropped. There was no fence at all. Instead, there was a bridge, stretching from one side of the creek to the other. A fine piece of work it was too, with handrails and everything. And there was his younger brother, coming across with his hand outstretched. "You're quite a fellow, built to build this bridge after everything I'd done," said the younger brother. The two farmers met in the middle of the bridge and took each other's hands. Then they turned and saw that the carpenter was about to leave. "Wait," called John. "Stay a few days longer. I think we've got some more work for you." "I'd love to," said the carpenter, "but you'll be fine. And I've got other bridges to build." That's the story of the carpenter and the farmers. And a reading, and this reading I was prompted to share this reading because when Kathy was sharing her thoughts on friendship a couple of weeks ago, she mentioned Martin Buber's book, I and Thou. Some of you might be familiar with it. Martin Buber was an Austrian Jewish and Israeli philosopher, and he wrote that book in 1923. And I'd say it isn't an easy read. Even translated into English, it still isn't a particularly easy read, although it's a classic, really, in the spiritual canon. But I thought I'd share some words that the writer M.M. Owen writes about that book, because they feel relevant to our theme today. And he writes, the basic argument of I and thou goes like this. Human beings are not isolated, free-floating objects. They are subjects who exist in perpetual, multiple, shifting relationships with other people, the world, and ultimately God. We have two ways, he wrote, of relating in life. And he called them I, it, and I, thou. In I, it mode, our ego approaches another person or thing as an object separate from itself, as something or someone to be known or used. And its nature is always mediated through the subject's own self-regard. From the it stance, we don't engage with people or things in their entirety. Instead, we engage with them as a collection of qualities and characteristics, mostly notable for how they are useful to us. By contrast, in the I-thou relationship, rather than experiencing another being or thing, we encounter them. In other words, we meet their whole being. And that being is not filtered through our preconceptions and projections. No purpose intervenes, as Martin Buber put it. In this I-thou mode of relating, we can step into a space between, a space in which two people coexist and co-contribute. In this between lurks the vital, nourishing experience of human life, the real sacred stuff of existence. As he put it, all real living is meeting. It's not that the I-it stance is inherently negative. It's necessary and it's unavoidable that in life we do treat certain things as its. That's how we change a light bulb and follow a recipe and collect data or prove a mathematical proof. But in Buber's reading, much of the alienation and the stupefaction of modern living can be put down to our over-reliance on the I-it. We will solve our woes, he argued, by shifting toward the I-thou. The I-thou relationship, encountering, not just experiencing reality. So that's the book that Kathy was referring to a couple of weeks ago. Let's sing our second hymn, and this one is called We Would Be One. It's number 192 in our green hymn books. And again, you'll see the words on the screen. 192, We Would Be One. Oh, okay. Is it? So it was inevitable that as soon as we got the hymn books, the screen was absolutely fine. Let's come now to a time of quiet reflection. And this is going to be a time of some silence and then some music. In fact, the music is a song I shared once before. It's called Sanctuary, and it's our own Kate here who recommended this song to me. But before we come into the silence, just some thoughts about how we might use this time creatively. It's your time, but here are some possibilities. It's an opportunity perhaps to honestly reflect on our lives at this moment, or to contemplate our deepest values and concerns, to be still and listen to the person we really are and the divine spirit within us. Perhaps to access the pool of renewal, healing and forgiveness, which is always available to us. Maybe you would like to use the time to reflect on the gifts and blessings you have been given. Or simply to sit and be, or let the divine spirit flow through. So let us be silent together. Thank you, Kate, for that. So the question I asked was, how do we want to be together? And I'm asking that question because we are a spiritual community, and we sometimes refer to ourselves as a beloved community. And what does that mean, really, about how we are together? Well, you may say we're just the same as we are anywhere else, but I wonder if there are some differences, whether there might be something a little different, a little special perhaps, about the way we are together when we're in beloved community, and what that might look like. So this morning we started with a song that was called Home. I think in some ways maybe we're looking for a home, a spiritual home here. And we heard a story about a travelling carpenter who built bridges. maybe that's the kind of thing we might be doing here. We also heard about the difference between seeing people in terms of what characteristics and qualities they have and how they might perhaps be interesting to us, or even, dare I say, useful to us, and instead perhaps seeing them in their entirety as whole. Is that something that we might try to do here? And if we do want to do those things, any of those things, then it's up to us, because it won't happen otherwise. It's about how we decide to be in each other's company, how we decide to be together. So in a moment, I'm going to step down from the pulpit, and I'm going to come round with just a bit of paper for each of you that has 2 questions and some words on it. And I'm also going to share that with those of you online. So just hold fire a minute while I do that. I'm hoping you can see what I'm sharing online. It starts, how do we want to be together? Just have one to look at the moment. Can you see that? Nod if you can. Okay, that's good. So I'm going to move down here. So there's 2 things I'm asking you to do. And the first one you can do on your own. And just look at the list of words I've given you and see if one sort of speaks to you more than the others. Is there one of those words that really says something to you about what's important, about how we're together, how we build beloved community? And the question mark is there because if there isn't a word there that feels right for you, and you've got another word in your head that feels better, then use that. But just take a minute or 2 to have a look at those words and see if any one of them particularly strikes you as being, yes, this is what we need. This is how I really want us to be together in beloved community. Is there anyone who doesn't have one? You're allowed to talk if you want to. So this is an informal service. But it's your word I'm looking for, something that's meaningful to you about how you think we might be together. Yeah. I think what we're talking about is how we are together. That's you just said talk. Oh yeah, no, do. Sorry, I was listening. Yes, of course. Of course. And then when you feel ready, people here in church, I'd like you to share, if you're willing, the word that you chose with your group, and just say something about why you chose it, why it's important to you. And so part of this also is you're going to have to think about how to do that. How are you going to be together in your group? How are you going to share the time? I'm going to give you about 8 minutes. How are you going to share that time? How will you make sure everyone who wants to say something gets a chance to say something? how are you going to listen to what they say and think about it? Just think about how you're going to be in the group, because it's all part of how we are together and how we build community. And now I'm going to see if I can put those of you online into slightly smaller groups so you can do this together. Okay, just if you'd like to bring your conversation, for now anyway, to a close. I hope it's a conversation that can continue. It might continue over coffee later. It might continue in future weeks or in any other opportunity, because I think how we are together says a lot. If we can say something about that, I think it could be really meaningful to give a sense and a sense of safety for us all, that we understand what it is that we're doing here as a community.
You've made us work.
I've made you work. That's great. I'm more of that, I say. So we don't have a lot of time for feedback, but maybe just one or two thoughts, if anyone would like to share, or any words that came up that weren't on the list, perhaps. How did you get it down to one, Edgar?
Okay, I can explain very briefly.
All right, do it up here.
And hello, everyone. I started by questioning the question, and I said, I'm going to add my own words, because all these words are lovely, as Gab said, but I felt the word inclusivity was missing, and you cannot build a community unless it is done in a way that is inclusive. Now, there come the other people who joined in, and they put the word loving, both of them, and then playful and compassionate. And then we started having conversation, oh my God, too many words, what are we going to do? And I said, no. The word love includes everything. And of course, in some traditions, they say God is love and God is one. So if God is one, then love is one. If God is all-inclusive, then love is all-inclusive. So if we love people, if we love the community, then we care, we are inclusive, and we do all the good things that need to be done in a community.
Well, thank you, Edgar. I mean, that is true, of course. It is true, and I agree with you. And also, I think it's helpful to drill down a bit into, because love is such a sort of big word, and everybody means maybe something slightly different, and it has all these different facets, some of which are on your list. And maybe, unless we think about what we mean by love, what does that look like actually in action? It's easy to say, oh, we'll all be loving. Well, what does that mean about how we are? So I think, yeah, absolutely. And also just sort of taking it a step deeper and thinking about what it looks like. Great, thank you so much. And I'm going to have a look and see in a minute on the chat box what anyone's put on in line. But first, let's sing our last song, which is, I'm glad I put that up there. It's number 68, I Dream of a Church. And this time it's the purple hymn books. So I've given you those as well in case the screen plays up again. Number 68, I Dream of a Church.
She's glad of her world in its
May you be filled with the blessings of this beloved community. May you carry them with you as you depart from here. May you discover the places in the world where these blessings are needed. May you have the courage to share them. May there be an open place within you to receive the blessings of the people you meet along the way. May it be so.